Deep in the bones of the world, something ancient stirs, shuffling in the dark, waiting for its turn. A lone necromancer works his dark arts in the silence and dust. Every ritual brings something back that should have stayed buried. A deal with a dark god, a hand drawn in blood. Nothing stays still for long down in the crypt. When I was a kid in the summer, we'd go up to our trailer, even further north than my hometown of Moose Poop, North Ontario. I loved it up there. Some of my best childhood memories are from that trailer. Those long, lazy summer days with nothing better to do than poke around in the woods and catch frogs in the swamp. And playing lots of cribbage with my elderly trailer neighbors. I probably played between 6 and 7 million games of cribbage back then. And to this day, I still love busting out the cribbage board with anyone who will play with me. Usually old people. The core gameplay of Cribbage is great, but it's not a very interesting game, to be fair. Even the name Cribbage doesn't get your blood pumping, does it? A while back, I made a solo Balatro style card game called Solatro. I made a video about it and I shared the rules, which you could print and turn into a booklet so you could have like a little kit with everything you needed just in a deck of cards. I'll link to that video below if you want to check it out. But as I worked on that game, my mind spun with ideas for similar games that I could do, but with totally different mechanics. I have a couple on the go, but the one that made it to the top of the list and the one that I made is a solo solitaire version of Cribbage. I'd kind of figured out the whole rule set before I realized that I could flavor it something fun. I wanted this to have the vibe of an old PC RPG. Nothing complicated in terms of the mechanics, more just like the mood and the vibe of a dark and gritty dungeon crawler. So on that note, let's dust off the grave dirt and dig into my latest little card game side quest, Crypt. It's like crib and crypt together. Cribbed. It's clever, trust me. So at a high level, you are playing a solo roguelike as a necromancer exploring an ancient crypt, building cribbage hands to fight monsters. You start with 20 health. Each round, called a crawl, is made up of encounters, which are like rooms of a dungeon. In each one, you draw 5 cards, discard 1 to your offering to the dark god, and then reveal a hero which you can use as part of your hand. Then the monster is revealed. Its value is the score you need to beat. So if your hand meets or beats that, you add that monster to your graveyard. If not, you take the difference as damage, and the face cards are boss fights, which I'll explain in a bit. After 4 encounters, if you survive, you return to your lair, and those cards that you set aside for your offering, those become the points that you spend on boons, which are like power-ups, for your next crawl. And you keep crawling and seeing how far you can get until you die. A terrible death. In the game, not in real life. Well, actually, I guess that's not technically true. If you die in real life, the game probably will end too. That's the gist, and I'll explain in more detail in a bit, but I do have the full instructions written out in long form style that you can read online or download. And just like I did with Balatro, I also made a zine style mini version of the instructions. This version can be printed and cut and folded using a little bit of paper magic to turn it into this lovely little booklet, which you can print and keep with a deck of cards to have it all together as a little, like a kit. I have all this stuff hosted on my Patreon page. It's not a paid thing, it's a public post, so you can get it for free. You don't have to subscribe to my Patreon and support me and my work. Definitely don't have to bother with that sort of thing. And making the booklet is easy. You just print it out and then trim along the dotted line and then fold it in half like this, and then unfold it and fold it in half the other way, and then fold up each side like this so that it makes a kind of W shape, you see? And then you cut just this one part in the middle. This line here. Don't go cutting the whole dang thing in half. Watch me carefully. Snip that and then just kind of fold it down and flip the pages around until it's kind of shaped like a book. It's pretty easy, but you'll probably screw it up and then just watch the video more carefully the second time. That's fine. I know life is hard for you sometimes. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty rules. And because this is based on cribbage point scoring, it probably makes sense to just explain how that works first. The idea with cribbage is you get 5 cards in your hand, and then you have to discard one of them. And that card goes into a hand called the crib, which is scored later. That leaves you with 4 cards, and then a random card called the cut card is added, so your final scoring hand is actually 5 cards. The scoring works like this. You score points by making combinations of cards in your hand. So pairs are worth 2 points each, Any cards that add up to 15 are worth 2 points each. Runs of consecutive cards are worth their length, so a run of 3 is worth 3 points. Flushes score 1 point per card if all the cards share a suit and you have at least 4 of them. What makes Cribbage unique is that each combo counts, even if the cards overlap. So the same card can be used in multiple different combinations as long as you're not counting the exact same combo twice. For example, a good hand in Cribbage might be a 10 and another 10 and a jack and a queen, and then the cut card is a 5. Oh, by the way, face cards are worth 10 and aces are worth 1. So we add them up by saying what you're scoring and then the current score. So it's like 15-2, 15-4, 15-6, 15-8. A pair brings that up to 10, and then the runs 11, 12, 13, and then 14, 15, 16. That is a huge hand in Cribbage. 16 points for that bad boy. There's some other Cribbage specific rules that I won't get into because they don't really affect us, but that's what you need to know for this game. And again, I'll have the full instructions linked below, which you can read and learn at your own pace if you didn't catch all that. But let's move on to Crybbed now that we know how the scoring works. In Crybbed, you are a necromancer. You start the game in your lair, presumably like some library at the top of a dark tower, probably with some sort of dark cube of blackness that whispers evil things to you as if it's possessed by a dark god. You venture into the darkness of a spooky crypt, hoping to defeat monsters and gain undead minions and bring back a suitable offering to the dark god. At the start of the round, you increase the round number. Round 1 is just 1, so you don't need to increase that. If you want to, you can just use a pen and paper to keep track of stuff, or coins, just bring out a new coin each round. I like to use a D6 as the round counter. I've never even made it past round 5, and I've played like 30 times as I worked on this, but it is technically possible to make it past round 6, so, track this however you want. Each room of the crypt is an encounter, which begins with drawing a hand of 5 cards. One of these cards gets put aside for your offering. And just like in Cribbage, you want to give good cards for your offering because you're going to be scoring that later. So keep an eye on what's in your offering and add good stuff to it, kind of thing. And then once you do that, you'll draw a card to be your hero. This is more or less just an extra card for you to use in your hand scoring. And then you turn up the monster. The monster's kind of power value is the value of the card plus the current round number counter. So on round 1, each monster gets +1 to their total. On round 2, they each get +2, etc. The value of the monster card is what you need to beat with your crib hand. So if I turn up a monster that's a 7 card, that's 7 + 1, so I need to get an 8 to beat it. Whatever my hand is worth, that's what I contribute to the fight. So let's say that I have a crappy hand with just a small run of 3. That's worth 3 points. So I didn't beat the monster, I just blocked 3 points of its damage. So 8 minus 3, that's 5. The monster slashes my face and I take 5 damage. Not a great start, but that's fine. I'm used to disappointing myself. At the end of the encounter, all the cards that are part of it are gathered and put into a discard pile that is separate from your graveyard and the offering. So you usually have 4 piles of cards: the draw deck and the discard and your graveyard and the offering. This is where I put them to keep track. Now we move on to the next encounter. I draw my 5 cards, I pick a card from my offering, and then I draw my hero card, and then I draw the monster. The monster in this case, let's say, is a 4 card, so that's 4 + 1 for the round number, so 5 is what I have to beat. Let's say here that I have this as my hand, a 2, a 3, and 2 7s, and then the cut card is an 8. So the score for that is 15-2, 15-4, and a pair of 6. 6 points. I've got more than enough to beat the monster, so I win, and I get to put this monster into my graveyard. Now, your graveyard does a few things. The cards in your graveyard can affect your offering, which I'll explain in a minute, but think of your graveyard cards as like your undead minions, and you can sacrifice your hero to bring up undead cards from your graveyard. You gotta do this before the monster is drawn, and if you do, just swap out one of these cards for your hero, but the hero goes face down in your offering, which negatively affects the offering. And also you lose one of the cards in your graveyard, so that negatively affects the offering too. But sometimes you can get such a big point value from it that it ends up being worth it. When you swap out the graveyard card, that becomes your new hero, and then you play out the rest of the round normally. You'll go through all 4 encounters of the crawl, which is easy to remember because you can just play until you get 4 face-up cards in your offering, and then you've survived the crawl and you can head back to your lair. But now, you can do stuff there. When you're ready to do your offering, this is where the cards you set aside during the crawl are scored. You also turn up a random card for this, which I like to think of as like grabbing some random innocent villager to sacrifice to the dark god. Any face down cards that you added by swapping out your hero for graveyard cards are going to be in here, in your offering. And each one of those subtracts 1 point from your offering total. Think of this like the Dark God doesn't like it when you show weakness and rely on your minions. However, if you have cards in your graveyard, you get 1 point per card added to the offering total. So let's say after the first crawl you have 2 cards in your graveyard and your offering is worth like 12 points. But you also have 1 face down card in your offering. That's 2 plus 12, which is 14, minus 1, which is 13. So you have 13 points to spend on healing and boons. Healing is simple. You can spend 1 point of your offering value to heal 1 point of HP. And you can do this as much as you want, up to 20. That you have a max HP of 20. I like to use a D20 to keep track of the HP. The boons are like a shop to spend your offering points, and you can pick how to spend them. The boons are only in effect for a single crawl, so these effects only last until the next crawl is done, and then you'll need to rebuy them again if you want them later. There are 6 to choose from. For 2 points, you can get a torch, which lets you peek at the monster before you reveal it. Kind of gives you a chance to decide if you want to do graveyard stuff before the fight. The warding sigil costs 4, and that makes it so that your sacked heroes do not corrupt your offering. They just get discarded. The bone charm is worth 6 points, and that lets you heal 2 HP after each encounter. So you'll slowly heal for 8 HP over the course of the crawl with that one, kind of thing. For 8 points, you can get the Holy Water, which subtracts 2 from the power of each monster that you fight during the crawl. The Black Grimoire is cool. It costs 10, but that lets you draw a hand of 6 cards instead of 5. 1 goes into your offering and you discard 1, but having an extra card to choose from it's a big deal. And for 12 points, you can get the Broken Mirror, which makes it so that your hero card counts as 2 copies of itself. That is pretty great. You can get some crazy high hand values going with that, but it costs a ton, and keep in mind that the more you spend on the boons, the less you have to spend on healing. And the game only goes as long as you have the HP to keep playing, so that's pretty important to think about too. And also, just like what I did with Balatro, the middle spread of the booklet is actually like a little playmat. So you can use whatever kind of marker you want to mark off the boons that you bought. And there's a little cheat sheet for what the bosses and the jokers do. We'll talk about that in a minute. So if we have 13 points to spend, let's say we get the ward for 4 points and the charm for 6 points. That leaves 3 points left over, which we can use to heal for 3 HP. Oh, and while it's on my mind, I'll say it now. It's up to you to pay attention to the boons while you play. If you forget that you have a boon and then you move on to the next round, you don't get the benefit. So pay attention. And now we're ready to move on to the next stage, which is another crawl. All we do here is shuffle the deck and the discard. The only cards that you don't shuffle are your graveyard if you have any in there, and then you increase the round counter to 2, and we're ready to start the next crawl. Now, do you remember that I told you there were bosses? Yeah, you do. Don't lie. The face cards are bosses. These guys aren't just worth 10 points, which is already a high value to fight, but they each have a different effect. The Jack is the werewolf, and his deal is that if the suit of the Jack matches your hero's suit, that means that it's a full moon, and your hero is instantly eaten by the werewolf. You don't get to use the hero as part of your hand. It's pretty rare, but it's both soul-crushing and also kind of fun when it happens. The Queen is the ghost, and when she comes out, you do not get the benefit of any of your boons for that encounter. The Queen cancels out all boons until the next encounter. The King is the real nasty one. This is the Lich. His deal is he turns your graveyard against you. When he comes out, you gotta instantly take your entire graveyard and discard it, and for every card that you discard, that increases his value. So if you had 7 cards in your graveyard and the Lich comes along, you now have 0 cards in your graveyard and the Lich is a 17 power creature, plus whatever the round difficulty is. So like be careful holding on to a huge graveyard. It's super risky when there's Liches about. Which there always is in the Crypt. The final special card is the Joker, and this is optional because not every deck of cards has Jokers, but if you have them, you can use them. And the Joker does different stuff depending on where it shows up. If it shows up in your hand, it just counts as a nothing card. It just takes up space. You can toss it into your offering, but it'll take up space there too. If it shows up as your hero, that's good. You instantly win the encounter, no matter what bad guy shows up. You win. If it shows up as the monster, it'll clear out your graveyard. So you discard your entire graveyard along with the Joker, and then draw a new monster card and finish the encounter as normal. And if it shows up as the cut card for the Dark Offering, that's very good. You instantly get any of the boons for free, and you can still use whatever points you had in your offering to buy more boons or heal. The game ends when your HP drops to 0, you're instantly dead, and you die. And whatever round you died on is your final score. So if you made it halfway through round 4, you got a 4. I even put a fun little ranking in the rules to give you something to shoot for. My average round that I made it to is probably like 2 or 3, but I suck at games and you'll probably do better than me, to be honest. And that's kind of it, I guess. That's the entire game. You play cribbage hands to fight monsters, you add the monsters you defeat to your graveyard, you build up an offering, you get boons, and you head back to the crib to do it again and again until you die. Just like being a necromancer in real life, probably. I had a lovely time making this. I played the heck out of it over and over to get the balance just right, and I'm pretty sure it's fun. So please, if it looks good to you, check out the link below and try it. All you need is a deck of cards. You can also find the link to my Cilantro video and download there too, if you're more into the Balatro style poker roguelike thing. But please, if you try Crybbed or Cilantro, pretty please, let me know what you think. I might make some minor changes to the rules if needed. I don't think it's possible to break the game, but let me know if you have anything to suggest, or just let me know what you think in general. I'd really just love to hear if you like it or not, or whatever. And if you made it this far, then you obviously liked the video, so I'm gonna ask you to click the thumbs up button and subscribe notifications, something YouTube stuff. I'm TechDweeb, thanks for watching, bye bye!